What's up, party people? Welcome back to Yo MTV Raps. I'm Chad.
And I'm Rose.
And we are coming to you once again from beautiful downtown Patagonia. Now, last we spoke, we had taken you back to late March of 2020, shortly after we received the government mandate to close the restaurant due to the global pandemic. The next couple of weeks for me were really just fraught with employee drama and all the work involved with shutting this restaurant down for an undetermined amount of time.
Yeah. I had mentioned in a previous episode that I was going back to the US to try to regroup. And while I was there, I started to see a therapist, and I wanted to get the most I could while I had the time. And I was in a much better mental state, but I knew, especially hearing of the news, that if I wanted to get back to Chile, I had better do it soon. Every day the news was getting worse and worse, and the numbers in terms of the pandemic were rising. And I was also hearing of all of the travel restrictions. And Chad was telling me of the firsthand stories he was getting from people who were trying to leave from here and would make their flight reservations, confirm their flight, only to make that 3-hour drive to the airport and then be turned away.
I was hearing story after story of people that would confirm a flight, go to the airport, find out their flight had been canceled 2 days prior. I mean, we were even hearing stories of people that were booking flights with the airline that the airline had canceled 2 days prior to their booking. So nobody really seemed to know what was going on, and a lot of people were getting stuck at the airport with nowhere to go, and I didn't want that to happen to Rose.
Yeah, I knew I had my work cut out for me, so I started by contacting the Chilean consulate because I knew that they weren't allowing foreign travelers in, and I do have all of my resident papers. I have my resident visa, my Chilean ID, I have my work contract. And they ran all of my information in the system twice, and I was cleared for travel, which was good.
Yeah, you know, even if she could catch a flight, that was a major concern. We heard about people that had crossed the border into Argentina attempting to drive north before they closed the border, only to get stopped at a police checkpoint and forced into a 2-week quarantine. And with a lot of Rose's travel itineraries, they had her routing through Mexico or Brazil, and since every country makes their own rules, again, one of our fears was that she would get stuck and forced into quarantine somewhere like Brazil.
Yeah, one of the tickets that I was given, they had me going from Albuquerque to LA, then LA to Miami, Miami to, Mexico City, then Mexico City to Lima, then Lima to Santiago, and that was just one ticket that I was given.
They kept canceling various legs of her flight, and then they would try to rebook that leg, so it would go from Albuquerque to Miami, then up to like St. Paul, Minnesota, or something ridiculous. And I think you ended up having to scrap 1 or 2 complete itineraries before they gave you one that actually stuck.
I did, yeah. My final itinerary out the door with my ticket, it was Albuquerque to LA, then LA back to Houston, Houston to Sao Paulo, Brazil, Brazil to Santiago.
And what is usually probably about a solid 30 hours worth of travel ended up turning into 3 or 4 days because of all these ridiculous layovers. She had like 20 hours in Sao Paulo, 30 hours in Santiago.
I did. So I finally arrived to Santiago. We exit the plane and we're filtered into a medical checkpoint line, and we all have our COVID-19 questionnaires in our hand. And they come to us one by one and they ask us a series of questions, and then they stamp our medical paperwork. When the woman got to me, she asked where I was coming from. She checked my temperature, and before I know it, I got a big red quarantine stamp on my paperwork, which, looking around, was much different from everyone else who had blue stamps that said pass. When I got to the front of the line, I could tell that they had never received a quarantine stamp before, because the guy started calling over military personnel airport personnel, medical personnel, and they all started asking me questions. I was told at first that the flight to Punta Arenas that I had a ticket for had been canceled, and that all future flights to Punta Arenas had been canceled.
Which we later found out was false.
Yeah. They were telling me that maybe I could go back to Brazil. They were telling me that they would have to quarantine me. They also suggested that maybe I just rent a car and drive the rest of the way to Natales.
Which is physically impossible since the Argentinian borders were closed.
Yes, so it was all very confusing. And before I knew it, I was being escorted by military personnel out of the airport and into a taxi, destination unknown.
And Rose had originally booked her flight to arrive in Punta Arenas the day before my 44th birthday. And she had like a 30-hour layover in Santiago. So an hour after her arrival in Santiago, I bolted upright out of bed, woke up immediately and realized, oh, I need to check in with Rose. I grab my phone and I see a message that says, babe, they've escorted me out of the airport. They loaded me into a taxi. I'm being put into quarantine, which was our worst nightmare realized.
Yeah, it really was. It was about a 20 to 30 minute drive in the taxi, and we finally arriving, it was probably 2 a.m. by this point. And I'm looking around, and from what I can see, the neighborhood is really sketchy and graffiti on all of the buildings. And when we get there, the taxi driver knocks on this unmarked door, and we hear a series of bolts and locks being undone from the other side of the door. And this man escorts me up to the 4th floor and down this dark, dingy hallway with stained carpet. And he opens my door and points to a camera that's pointed at my room, making sure I know that there's surveillance. And I step inside of the room, and he takes the key and closes the door, and I'm just standing there in this dark, dingy room.
Yeah, so essentially, she had been put in a institutional facility that was under military control somewhere in downtown Santiago. This is all I knew. So in years of international travel, I've never once contacted an American embassy. This was my first time. I got on the website, I found a contact, I shot off an email immediately, and almost got an immediate response with information for a caseworker. So as soon as the office opened in the morning, the embassy opened, I called, I got a hold of somebody, and they were just as confused as we were, because upon checking Rose's paperwork, they found out that, she was cleared to enter the country, and escorting her out of the airport for no particular reason seemed to be in violation of their own protocols. I actually also had a contact who had a friend at the Ministerio de Salud. Ministerio de Salud, the health department in Santiago. He contacted her, and she was confused as well. So the American embassy didn't understand what was happening. Even the health department in Santiago, nobody had an explanation as to why she was pulled out of the airport and put into quarantine.
So I was in this facility for about a few days while Chad was trying to figure out what we were going to do.
Yeah, and what we discovered in that time was that apparently while Rose was in the air between Brazil and Chile, that the rules had literally changed. And while originally she had been cleared to continue her trip to Punta Arenas, anybody that was entering the country from an international destination had to undergo a mandatory quarantine in Santiago before they were allowed to travel domestically. So this was actually a bit of a relief. Once we realized that, we got to work figuring out whether or not we could actually get her transferred out of the facility. One of the reasons they put her into quarantine was that she did not have an address in Santiago. Luckily, just by a stroke of luck, I've got a friend whose brother owns an apartment in Santiago that happened to be unoccupied at the time. So just through, various channels, we were able to process a transfer from the facility to this privately owned apartment in a decent part of Santiago.
It was such a relief.
Our buddy's brother ended up picking Rose up, dressed up like, what was he dressed up like?
Well, I don't know, but it was just...
He was dressed up like a cut-rate Ghostbuster.
It was nice for me
Sorry,
to
Nico.
actually be able to laugh, because I come out of the door and he's got these dishwashing gloves on, and we'll show you a picture.
But so once we were able to get Rose transferred out of the no-tell motel, we started working on getting me to Santiago, because we had already been apart for going on 4 months now, and the last thing I wanted Rose to do was be alone under quarantine where she's not even allowed to physically leave the apartment. We were under quarantine down here as well, so we had to go to the police department, request certain forms, go through the process of booking an airline ticket for me from Punta Arenas to Santiago. Once we finally got all the paperwork, we had to cross 3 different sanitary barriers just to get to the airport. We had to go through the process of the paperwork at the airport, temperatures, the whole thing. And they actually ended up, as my plane was ready to taxi, they stopped the flight, reopened the door. The PDE, which is like the local version of the FBI, and some people from the health department physically boarded the plane and removed someone from the flight because they were actually on the blacklist and weren't allowed to travel. So after all that drama, I finally made it to Santiago and was reunited with my love. We spent just the first couple days getting reacquainted. And then other than that, I mean, the quarantine in Santiago was really fairly uneventful.
We played a lot of cards and I baked a lot.
Yeah, Rose baked a lot, which required me go to the store. Now, most of Santiago was still under a strict quarantine. In order for me to even do something like go grocery shopping, I had to apply for a permit online. And they only give you 2 permits a week, and they're only good for like 3 hours at a time. I had this 3-hour time limit to walk to the store, and then I'd have to wait in a hot parking lot in a line for about 90 minutes because it would only allow a limited number of people in the store at once. We had all these delivery services, so almost everybody that was grocery shopping at Leader, they were on the clock. And they have a window, like 30 minutes or it's free, like a Domino's pizza or something, that they have to get these groceries delivered by. So shopping in Santiago was damn near like a contact sport, despite the fact that we're supposed to maintain
throwing shit in their carts.
We're supposed to maintain social distancing, and everyone's wearing like gloves and a mask, which I actually think emboldens people because it gives them a sense of anonymity. You know what I mean? They're like, "Bitch, you don't know me.
Yeah.
I'm wearing a mask. Who are you gonna tell?" But and I hate grocery shopping anyway.
I hate it too.
I suck at grocery shopping, especially with the BS that the grocery stores do, where it's like, okay, the white bread's over here, but the wheat bread's on the other side of the store, and the tortillas are like in the parking lot. They make you run all over the place, like IKEA. I'm on a time limit of like 3 hours. I had to wait in a hot parking lot for an hour and a half just to even get in the place, and then I get in there and I'm battling all these people that are dressed the same, who they're on the clock, they're trying to get in and out as quickly as possible, and just something silly like trying to find sugar, because we were cooking a lot and Rose was baking, so trying to find sugar amidst, they love sativa, is it sativa?
Sativa is like a type of weed.
Oh, what's the?
That's stevia.
Stevia. They love stevia.
Well, they love sativa too.
Hey, the stevia. They love stevia in this country. I don't know what the deal is.
Oh my God.
And so I would try to just find sugar, like regular refined white sugar, so Rose could bake some cookies. No sugar to be found, but stevia. Oh man, we got stevia for aisles, aisles of stevia. It was just like, they had it in green bottles, they had it in white bottles, plastic bottles, glass bottles, cardboard bottles, cardboard bottles, however you wanted to buy stevia or sativa, they had you.
We should have cooked with that.
What? Yeah, we weren't going anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, unfortunately, because Rose usually does the grocery shopping, and thank you for that, by the way, just because I don't have the patience for it. So, I mean, that was really the most eventful part of the quarantine, was me trying to navigate the full contact sport of grocery shopping at Leader.
At least we had nice weather. Chad was coming from here, which is freezing cold, and we did have sunshine, so you were able to get a nice tan.
Yeah, and luckily, well, I don't know about that, but luckily the apartment did have like a little patio on the side, so we could get outside, we'd get some fresh air, so that was definitely a silver lining. The other silver lining of the quarantine was the flight back to Punta Arenas. Now, I've made the flight between Santiago and Punta Arenas dozens of times, and despite the fact that you're flying over one of the most picturesque parts of the globe, you never get to see anything because you stare out the window at clouds. This time, the weather was amazingly clear, and we had beautiful views of the entire southern ice field, Fitzroy, Cerro Torre, the glaciers, Torres del Paine. The views were absolutely incredible.
And the good thing is there were hardly any other people on the plane, so Chad was able to bounce around to wherever to get the best pictures.
Much to the dismay of the flight staff. They were wondering what the crazy gringo was doing with a bra on his face, running all over the plane. So we finally got back to Punta Arenas, and for whatever reason, I can't remember, my motorcycle was there. So while our mutual friends drove Rose back to Natalis, I was able to take advantage of our last remaining moments of freedom and hit a little bit of dirt on the way back, and we took a little day hike. But we finally got home, and Rose was reunited with her sweet Keanu.
I missed my baby so much.
And other than that, I mean, yeah, that's the story of our quarantine drama, and Rose being kidnapped from the airport by the military. So I know that a lot of people out there have like similar stories, similar travel stories of trying to get home.
Yeah, actually let us know what your stories are. I'd be curious to hear.
Yeah, hit us up with a comment. Let us know if you had any like similar dramas, or maybe you were one of the people that were forced into quarantine in Argentina, or you know, stuck at an airport for, you know, an indefinite amount of time. You know, other than that, we would be remiss not to mention and thank the people that were really instrumental in helping us out through all this. You know, Nico, thank you, sir, for the apartment in Santiago, our cut rate Ghostbuster. The people at the embassy in Santiago, the American embassy. I've never had to contact the embassy before, but I mean, I can't say enough good things. The caseworker actually took a vested interest, as did the people at the Ministry of Health in Santiago. Other than that, Max, of course, thank you for everything that you've done and continue to do. What else is there to say? I'd like to thank the Academy. Who else should we thank?
Man, there's so many.
I'd like to thank the guy that dressed up like a beekeeper at the airport in Santiago.
Yeah.
That was very entertaining for me. Thank you.
We were underdressed. We didn't have like cool costumes
I
or
know.
anything.
Any port in a storm, man. Any laugh I can get in a, you know, amidst a tragedy, I will take.
That's so true.
Thank you. You put a smile on both of our faces.
And I think his crotch was torn up the back. If I remember, I think like he had busted out of it.
Apparently, she was staring at your crotch.
Well, it was staring at me.
Look, I don't know who was staring at who. Okay. Yeah, thanks for watching along. I'm sure you guys are probably tired of hearing us talk if you actually made it through the entire video. So I think next time we'll try to put some clips of some various winter road trips that we took. Yeah, we'll try to lighten the mood. We don't have any more kidnapping stories. Not for now, anyway.
Yet.
Not for now. Stay tuned. Other than that, what else is there to say?
That's it.
That's
Thanks
it?
again.
Okay, high five. Psych.
Bye.
Ow! Damn, that was on camera. You guys saw that. You guys all saw that. You're crazy. Anyway, yeah, the grocery shopping in Santiago was definitely interesting. So luckily, I only had to do it a couple times. Yeah. You're next. You're not under quarantine anymore.
I always go grocery shopping.
She got the Rona.
That's not funny. There we go. Ramona.
Ramona, that bitch is stalking me. Ramona, the Rona. Yo, MTV Raps, what's up, Hobson?